I grew up in a house where everything was controlled. My clothes, the books I read, the people I talked to. My parents, devoutly religious, made sure I followed their rules without question. Disobedience wasn't an option. Any sign of rebellion was met with lectures about sin, punishment, and how a woman's role was to be pure, obedient, and godly. When I got accepted into college, it felt like I had finally been granted a taste of freedom. I wasn't completely free. My parents still checked in constantly, made sure I attended church on Sundays, and had expectations about my behavior. But at least I could breathe. That's when I met Jake. Jake wasn't the kind of guy my parents would approve of. He wasn't religious, he drank sometimes, and he had this carefree attitude about life that I envied. We started off as friends, but things escalated quickly. I loved the way he made me feel, like I wasn't just some fragile thing that needed to be protected, but an actual person who could make her own choices. Then, a few months into my first year, I missed my period. I didn't panic at first. Stress could do that, right? But when a second month passed, I knew. I took a test in the dorm bathroom at midnight, shaking so badly I could barely hold the stick. Positive. I stared at that little pink plus sign for so long it stopped making sense. I wasn't ready for this. My parents, God, my parents, would disown me. I knew they would. I imagined their faces. My mother's silent disappointment. My father's cold, unblinking stare. I told Jake the next day. His reaction wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. He was shocked, obviously. He ran his hands through his hair, let out a long breath, and said, "Okay, what do you want to do?" I hadn't even thought that far ahead. I just knew I was scared. I tried to hide it for as long as I could. But my mother had a way of sensing when something was off. One night, during a visit home, she cornered me in the kitchen. "You've been acting strange," she said, watching me carefully. "Is there something you need to tell me?" My stomach turned. I could have lied, but I knew she'd see through it. So I told her. For a long moment, she just stared at me. No screaming, no immediate burst of anger, just silence. Then she nodded, almost as if she'd expected this. "We will take care of it," she said. I didn't understand what that meant at first. But when my father sat me down that evening, it became clear. "No one can know about this," he said. "Not the church, not our friends. Do you understand?" I nodded weakly. "You'll go away for a while," my mother added. "We have a plan." A plan. That word made my skin crawl. I was given no choice. Within days, my parents arranged for me to leave college. They told everyone I was taking a mental health break. In reality, they sent me to a facility, a home for unwed mothers, disguised as a religious retreat. The place was cold, sterile. The women there were like ghosts, moving through the halls with dead eyes. No one spoke about the outside world. We weren't allowed phones, internet, or contact with anyone except approved visitors, which for me meant only my parents. Jake had no idea where I was. I wasn't allowed to call him. My parents had cut me off completely. The facility had one purpose: to make us give up our babies. We were lectured daily on how we had sinned, how we could redeem ourselves by doing the right thing and giving our children to good Christian families, how keeping the baby would ruin our lives. Every day, women disappeared. They gave birth, signed papers, and were sent home empty-handed. I became numb. I stopped fighting. What else could I do? But then something changed. One of the girls, a quiet girl named Hannah, had been there longer than me. One night, she slipped into my room, her face pale. "They're lying to us," she whispered. "Some of the babies don't go to families. They go somewhere else." I stared at her, heart pounding. "What do you mean?" "I heard them talking. Some of the babies, they take them. They don't get adopted." That night, I didn't sleep. I started paying attention. Listening. I noticed the way some of the staff whispered among themselves, how certain mothers weren't given paperwork before they were sent home. I had to get out. I wasn't going to let them take my baby. I should have known my parents wouldn't stop at just sending me away. When they brought me back home from the so-called maternity retreat, I thought, foolishly, that things would go back to normal. I was wrong. The moment I stepped through the door, my mother took my phone. My laptop was gone. Every trace of my college life, my books, my notes, even the clothes I had worn at school, had disappeared. It was like I had never left. "You're sick," my father said, his voice cold and final. "That's what we'll tell people. You need time to recover." Recover. It didn't matter that I felt fine. It didn't matter that I had just carried a child for 9 months and that I wanted, more than anything, to go back to school, to see my friends, to get my life back. None of it mattered. My mother made the rules clear. No leaving the house unless absolutely necessary. No visitors. No calls, no texts, no emails. My parents told the church, our neighbors, and even extended family that I had fallen seriously ill and needed rest. It was their way of ensuring no one questioned my sudden disappearance from college. But the worst part? They made me abandon everyone I cared about. I wasn't allowed to contact Jake. Not that it would have been possible. His number was blocked on every phone in the house, and I had no way of reaching him. My friends? I was told to send them short, scripted messages saying I was dealing with a personal crisis and wouldn't be available for a while. Then, after a week, my mother took my accounts altogether. "You don't need these distractions," she said. I felt like a prisoner. The house, which had once been suffocating but familiar, became a cage. The walls closed in on me. I couldn't step outside without one of my parents watching. Even if I had tried to leave, I had no money, no phone, no access to the outside world. And then came the final betrayal. One evening, my father sat me down. His expression was eerily calm, too calm, like he was explaining something completely reasonable. "You won't be giving birth here," he said. I blinked. "What?" "We've arranged for a hospital in a neighboring town," my mother added. "It's best if no one sees you. We'll say you've gone to stay with an aunt until you recover." Panic clawed at my throat. "Why? Why can't I?" "Because," my father interrupted, "people talk. And we won't have you ruining this family's reputation." I wanted to scream. Instead, I clenched my fists so hard my nails bit into my palms. "And what happens after?" I asked, my voice shaking. My mother hesitated, just for a second. Then she forced a tight smile. "You'll see." The hospital was a cold, sterile place. It wasn't some small-town clinic. It was a private facility, the kind where people paid extra for discretion. My parents had made sure of that. They had chosen a doctor for me, Dr. Reynolds, a tall, graying man who barely looked me in the eyes when he spoke. He treated me like a problem to be solved, not a person. The nurses were the same. They followed orders. No kindness, no comfort. Just a job to do. The labor was long and excruciating. I screamed for hours, but no one held my hand. No one told me I was doing well. My mother stood in the corner of the room, stiff and silent, as if even watching me go through this was shameful. And then, finally, she was here. Emma. I barely got to see her before they took her away. A brief glimpse of soft, pink skin, tiny fingers curled into fists. I heard her cry once, a sharp, piercing wail, and then she was gone. I reached out, desperate. "Wait." But the nurse turned her back, walking briskly out of the room. My head spun. I looked at my mother. "Where are they taking her?" She smoothed the blanket over my legs, ignoring my question. "You should rest," she said. But I didn't rest. I wasn't allowed to hold Emma. Whenever I asked, they had excuses. "She needs to be checked," or "it's best for her to be monitored," or "she's sleeping now." Hours passed. Then a day. Then two. I begged, pleaded, but my mother and father were unmoved. I overheard them speaking to Dr. Reynolds once, voices low outside my hospital room. "She understands the plan?" my father asked. "She doesn't need to," Dr. Reynolds replied. "Everything is already arranged." My blood ran cold. Arranged. What had they done? I had to find my baby. I should have known my parents had a plan. Every move they made had a purpose. Every word carefully chosen to keep me under control. But I never expected them to do something this unforgivable. It started with the paperwork. I was still in the hospital, weak and exhausted from giving birth, when my mother walked into my room with a stack of documents in her hands. She sat down beside me, her face calm, almost gentle. "These are for Emma's birth certificate," she said, setting the papers on the tray table in front of me. "Just some signatures, that's all." I reached for them, but my fingers trembled. My mind was foggy from the medication they'd given me, and my body ached in ways I didn't think were possible. "You should do it now," she added, watching me too closely. "The hospital needs them as soon as possible." Something felt off. I picked up the pen but hesitated. The pages were filled with legal jargon, long sentences that blurred together in my tired mind. I scanned them, trying to focus, but my mother sighed impatiently. "Alice," she said, her voice firm now. "Just sign them. It's routine." Routine. I wanted to question her, to ask why there were so many pages, why some of the words didn't make sense. But I was too drained to fight. And if I argued, if I refused, I knew what would happen. The lectures. The guilt. The disappointed stares. So I signed. My mother took the papers immediately, slipping them back into her folder as she patted my hand. "Good girl," she murmured. I should have asked more questions. The next morning, Emma was gone. I woke up feeling strange, my arms instinctively reaching for the bassinet beside my bed, only to find it empty. Panic shot through me. I sat up too fast, my body screaming in protest. "Where is she?" I rasped, my voice hoarse. A nurse entered the room at that moment, looking startled by my distress. "Where's my baby?" I demanded. She hesitated, glancing at the door as if unsure whether to answer. "Your parents, they arranged for her transfer," she said finally. I stared at her, uncomprehending. "Transfer? What are you talking about?" The nurse shifted uncomfortably. "She was discharged early this morning." Discharged. My heart pounded as I struggled to swing my legs over the side of the bed. My whole body felt weak, but I forced myself to stand. I didn't care about the pain. "Where did they take her?" I asked, my voice rising. "Where is my daughter?" Before the nurse could answer, my mother appeared in the doorway. "Go get the doctor," she said sharply. The nurse gave me a sympathetic look before hurrying out. I turned on my mother, fury rising in my chest like a fire. "Where is Emma?" She didn't flinch. "She's with her new family," she said simply. The room tilted. "What?" My voice barely came out. My mother closed the door behind her, stepping inside like she had all the time in the world. "It's what's best for everyone, Alice. You're too young. You have no job, no home of your own, no husband." This was the only logical choice. My stomach lurched. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "No, you can't." "It's done," she said firmly. "You signed the papers." Realization crashed over me like a wave of ice. The documents. The ones she had given me. My hands started to shake. You tricked me, I breathed. You made me sign away my rights. My mother didn't even look guilty. You wouldn't have done it willingly, she said. We had to take responsibility for you. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was drowning, my chest tightening with sheer, unbearable grief. I want her back. My voice came out strangled, desperate. My mother sighed. Alice, listen to yourself. You think you can raise a child right now? You'd end up ruining both your life and hers. She's with good, responsible people who can give her everything she needs. I didn't care about any of that. I wanted my daughter. I stumbled toward the door, but my mother grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. You're not leaving, she said. I thrashed against her. Let me go. The door swung open, and my father stepped in, his expression hard as stone. Behind him stood two men in hospital scrubs, orderlies. My blood ran cold. No, I whispered. You're not doing this. You need to calm down, my father said. I need my daughter. I screamed. The orderlies moved toward me. I backed up, but my mother still had my arm. The next thing I knew, one of the men grabbed me, pinning my arms to my sides. I kicked, fought, screamed. She's hysterical, my mother said. She needs rest. I struggled harder, but the second man pulled out a syringe. No, please. A sharp sting in my arm. The last thing I saw was my mother's emotionless face as the world blurred around me. And then, darkness. I fought. I screamed. I begged. But no one cared. After my parents stole my daughter, I tried everything. I went to the hospital administration, demanding answers, but they brushed me off. Your parents handled everything legally, they said, their eyes full of empty sympathy. I called the police, only for them to tell me there was nothing they could do. After all, I had signed the papers. They tricked me, I wanted to say. They forced me. But it didn't matter. No one was on my side. At home, things only got worse. My parents acted as if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't just gone through the worst betrayal of my life. My mother continued with her daily routines, making tea, reading her Bible, and pretending that I wasn't falling apart. My father barely looked at me, only speaking when absolutely necessary. I couldn't stand it. One night, I went into their office, searching through their files, desperate for anything, an address, a name, something that would tell me where Emma had been taken. But my mother must have anticipated this. The filing cabinets were locked, the desk drawers empty. They had covered their tracks completely. I was trapped. For months, I lived like a ghost in that house. My parents didn't trust me to be alone, so they kept me under constant watch. If I so much as touched the front door handle, my father was there. If I made a phone call, my mother listened in. They had taken everything, my child, my freedom, my future. But they underestimated me. It took me a year to escape. I bided my time, pretending to be the obedient daughter they wanted. I went to church, I smiled at the neighbors, I played along with their sick fantasy that everything was fine. And then, one night, when I knew they were both asleep, I took my chance. I had hidden a small amount of cash over the months. Money I found in my father's coat pockets, coins left on the counter, anything I could sneak away without being noticed. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I left everything behind. I took nothing but the clothes on my back and the stolen money in my shoe. I walked for miles before I reached a bus station, where I bought a ticket to the farthest place I could afford. When the bus pulled away, I didn't look back. I was free. The years that followed weren't easy. I worked myself to exhaustion, taking any job that would keep me afloat. I slept in shelters, on couches, sometimes in my car when I finally saved enough to buy one. But I didn't care. I had one goal, to rebuild my life. And I did. I went back to college, working during the day and studying at night. It took longer than expected, but I refused to give up. I refused to let my parents win. That was when I met Lucas. He was nothing like Jake. Where Jake had been wild and impulsive, Lucas was steady, kind. He didn't push me to talk about my past, but he never made me feel ashamed of it either. With him, I finally felt safe. We got married. We had 2 beautiful children, Noah and Sophie. For the first time in my life, I was truly happy. I never spoke to my parents again. Until the letter arrived. It came in a plain white envelope, addressed in my mother's neat, careful handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Alice, it has been too long. We miss you and would love to meet our grandchildren. Please consider coming to see us. Let's put the past behind us. I stared at the words, disbelief turning to rage. Put the past behind us. As if they hadn't stolen my daughter. As if they hadn't destroyed my life and expected me to be grateful for it. I wanted to tear the letter apart, to set it on fire and never think of them again. But then a thought struck me. Maybe this was my chance to finally get answers. To finally know what had really happened to Emma. I decided to go. I had prepared myself for a difficult meeting with my parents, but nothing could have prepared me for the truth I was about to uncover. When I arrived at their house, everything felt eerily familiar, yet completely different. The white fence, the neatly trimmed hedges, the soft glow of the porch light, it was all the same. But I wasn't the same. I wasn't their obedient daughter anymore. Lucas had wanted to come with me, but I told him no. This was something I had to do alone. I knocked on the door, and within seconds, my mother opened it. She looked older, thinner, as if time had carved lines of worry into her once perfect face. My father stood behind her, his expression unreadable. Alice, my mother breathed, as if she couldn't believe I was really there. I didn't hug her. I didn't step inside. You wanted to see me, I said flatly. So here I am. For a second, she looked wounded. Then she stepped aside, gesturing for me to come in. I did, but every muscle in my body was tense. The house smelled the same, lavender and old wood, but it didn't feel like home. We sat in the living room, and for a while, there was nothing but silence. My mother smoothed the folds of her dress. My father cleared his throat. I didn't say anything. I just waited. Finally, my father spoke. We regret how things happened, he said stiffly. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Do you? My mother shot him a look, then turned to me with a softer expression. We just want to move forward, Alice. The past is the past. We thought it was time to reconnect, especially now that you have children. My stomach churned. The audacity of it. They had stolen my daughter from me, cut me off from my own child, and now they wanted to play doting grandparents? I clenched my jaw. Where is Emma? My father's face darkened. Alice. Where is she? I repeated, my voice rising. She's with a good family, my mother said quickly. They love her. She has everything she needs. I never agreed to give her up, I snapped. You tricked me. You stole her. My father exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. We did what was best. For who? My voice shook. For her? For me? Or for you? Neither of them answered. That's when I knew. There was more to this. Something they weren't saying. I leaned forward, my heart pounding. Tell me the truth. My mother hesitated, and for the first time, I saw it, the guilt. It flickered in her eyes before she looked away. We have records, my father muttered, standing up abruptly. I froze. What? I thought you might come asking for answers, he said, disappearing down the hall. So I gathered the paperwork. I turned to my mother, my stomach twisting in knots. What paperwork? She wouldn't meet my eyes. A minute later, my father returned with a thick manila folder. He placed it on the coffee table in front of me and sat down. I stared at it. My hands felt numb. Then slowly, I reached forward and opened it. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Legal documents. Signatures. Transfers. It was all there. The paperwork that finalized Emma's adoption. But then I saw something that made my blood turn to ice. A financial record. A transaction. A $50,000 donation made to my parents' church. A payment from the adoptive family. My breath caught in my throat. I flipped through the pages, my fingers shaking so hard I could barely hold them. Every detail confirmed what I was dreading. They hadn't just given Emma away. They sold her. My vision blurred. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and fast in my ears. I lifted my head slowly, looking at the two people who had raised me, who had controlled me, who had taken everything from me. You sold my daughter, I whispered. My mother flinched. Alice, it's not. You sold her, I said louder, my voice breaking. She went to a good home, my father said firmly, as if that justified it. She has a better life than you could have given her. I wanted to throw up. All those years, I had imagined Emma in the arms of some family who had legally adopted her through the system. A family who had maybe believed I had willingly given her up. But no. My parents had treated her like a transaction. A deal. And the church, their church, had been involved. I shot up from my seat, the folder slipping from my lap onto the floor. Pages spilled out, but I didn't care. I couldn't stay here a second longer. I turned to leave. Alice, wait. My mother reached for me, but I yanked my arm away. Don't ever contact me again, I spat, my voice shaking with fury. She looked like she wanted to cry, but I didn't care. I turned to my father, meeting his cold, emotionless gaze. I will find her, I said. And when I do, I will make sure she knows exactly what you did. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out, slamming the door behind me. And for the first time in years, I knew exactly what I had to do. I was going to find my daughter. It took months to find them. After walking out of my parents' house, I was consumed with one goal, finding Emma. I didn't care how long it took or how much it cost. I had lost 8 years with her, and I wasn't going to waste another second. I started by digging through the documents my father had given me. Some of them were vague, full of legal jargon that meant nothing to me, but one piece of information stood out, an address in another state, linked to the adoption records. I had no idea if Emma still lived there, but it was a start. I contacted every agency I could, pretending I was simply looking for information about a closed adoption. Most doors slammed in my face. Confidential records, they said. Nothing we can share. I was about to lose hope when I found a private investigator, Daniel Carter, a retired cop with a reputation for getting answers. Finding people is what I do, he said when we met in his cramped office. But adoption cases? Those are tricky. I slid a folder across his desk. I don't care how tricky it is. I just need to know where she is. He took the job. For weeks, I heard nothing. Then one evening my phone rang. I found them, Daniel said. Rachel and Matt Carter. They live in Oregon. Seems like good people. I barely processed the rest of what he said. My heart was pounding too hard. I had a name. I had a location. I had hope. I wrote to them that night. I spent hours crafting the perfect message, deleting and rewriting it over and over. How do you introduce yourself to the people who had raised your child? How do you ask about a daughter who had no memory of you? Eventually, I settled on the truth. Dear Rachel and Matt, my name is Alice. I believe I'm Emma's biological mother. First, please know that I am not trying to disrupt your lives or take anything from you. I only want to understand what happened and, if possible, connect with Emma in whatever way you feel is appropriate. I recently discovered that my parents manipulated my daughter's adoption without my consent. I was told that Emma had been placed with a loving family, and after searching for months, I found her names. I know this is probably a shock, and I don't expect anything from you. I just needed to reach out. If you're open to it, I would love to talk. Thank you, Alice. I sent it and spent the next 3 days checking my email every hour. Then, one morning I woke up to a response. Dear Alice, we weren't expecting this message, and we're still trying to process it. First, please know that we had no idea about any manipulation. We went through a private adoption process recommended by our church. We were told Emma's biological mother had willingly given her up. We would never have agreed to this adoption if we knew it was forced. Emma is happy and loved. She is kind, creative, and full of energy. She knows she was adopted, but we haven't told her much beyond that. We don't want to rush anything, but we're open to talking. We'd love to understand more. We've attached a recent photo of Emma, Rachel, and Matt Carter. I barely registered the words before scrolling down to the photo, and there she was, 8 years old, dark hair like mine, big, bright eyes. She was standing in a park, holding a book, smiling at the camera with a small gap where her front tooth should have been. I pressed my hand to my mouth, trying to stifle the sob that rose in my throat. She was real. She was okay. And now, for the first time in 8 years, I had a chance to know her. Rachel and Matt suggested a video call. We don't want to overwhelm her, Rachel had written. We told her we found someone from her past, and she's curious but nervous. We'll follow her lead. I agreed. I would have agreed to anything just to see Emma, to hear her voice. The day of the call, I was a wreck. Lucas sat beside me, his hand on my knee, grounding me. The kids were in the other room, unaware that their big sister was about to appear on the screen. When the screen lit up, Rachel and Matt appeared first. They looked exactly as I had imagined. Warm, kind, the type of people who made you feel safe just by being near them. And then Emma. She peeked into the frame, hesitant, half hiding behind Rachel's shoulder. My breath caught in my throat. Hi, Emma, I said softly. She looked at me for a long moment, as if trying to decide something. Then she waved, just a small, uncertain movement. I smiled, swallowing the lump in my throat. I'm really happy to meet you. She didn't say anything at first. Then in a small voice she asked, How do you know me? I glanced at Rachel and Matt, who gave me an encouraging nod. I knew you when you were very little, I said carefully. I've been looking for you for a long time. Emma tilted her head, considering this. Why? Because I love you. Because I never wanted to lose you. Because you are my daughter. But I couldn't say those things, not yet. Instead, I said, because you're very special to me. Emma looked down at her lap, picking at the sleeve of her sweater. For a moment, I thought she was going to end the call. Then she asked, Do you like cats? I blinked. I love cats. Her eyes flicked up to me, just for a second. I have a cat, she said quietly. What's their name? Oliver. That's a great name. A puzz. Then, he's fat. I let out a small laugh. I bet he's cute though. She nodded. He sleeps in my bed. I smiled, my heart aching with the weight of how much I had missed. He sounds like a good friend. For the first time, Emma smiled. Just a tiny one, but it was real. Rachel and Matt watched silently, giving us space. The conversation didn't last long, and Emma was still shy. But she didn't run away. She didn't shut down. When it was time to say goodbye, she waved again, this time with a little more confidence. Bye, Alice, she said softly. Tears burned in my eyes. Bye, Emma, I whispered. As the screen went dark, I let out a shaky breath. Lucas squeezed my hand. That went well. I nodded, unable to speak. Because for the first time in years, I had hope. Hope that this wasn't the end. Hope that one day Emma might come to know who I really was. And maybe, just maybe, she might want to know me too. I thought I had escaped them. After reconnecting with Emma, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, hope. Her adoptive parents, Rachel and Matt, had been cautious but open. They had agreed to build a slow, careful bridge between me and Emma, with the possibility of meeting in person one day. For the first time in nearly a decade, I felt like I was moving forward. And then my parents found out. I don't know how. Maybe they still had connections at the church. Maybe someone had seen my name in the records I had accessed. Maybe they had been watching me this entire time. But the moment they knew I had made contact with Emma, the harassment began. It started with phone calls. At first, they were from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them. But then came the voicemails. My mother's voice, tight and controlled. Alice, we need to talk. You don't understand what you're doing. My father's voice, cold and clipped. Stop this nonsense before you ruin everything. Then the calls turned into emails. I never should have opened them, but curiosity got the better of me. Alice, you are being selfish. Emma has a good life. Do not confuse her. You are making a mistake. Think about what you're doing. You are ungrateful. After everything we did for you, this is how you repay us? It wasn't just manipulation. It was a warning. They were angry. And that terrified me. Then they showed up. I was at work when the kindergarten called me. At first, I thought it was just a normal check-in about my son, Noah. But the voice on the other end was tight with worry. Ms. Bennett, there were 2 people here today asking for your children. An older man and woman. They said they were their grandparents. I spread through my veins. What did they say exactly? I asked, gripping the edge of my desk. They demanded to see Noah and Sophie, the teacher said. They were insistent. I swallowed hard. Did they touch my kids? Did they talk to them? No. We didn't let them in. We told them only authorized guardians can pick up the children. I let out a shaky breath, but the relief was short-lived. What did they do when you refused? A pause. Then. They stood outside for over an hour, watching the playground. I felt sick. They left eventually, the teacher added. But Ms. Bennett, they said they'll be back. I hung up and immediately called Lucas. He answered on the first ring. What's wrong, he asked, his voice sharp with concern. I told him everything. The calls, the emails, the kindergarten. Lucas was silent for a moment. Then he said, we're getting a lawyer. Now, filing for a restraining order was easier than I expected. The judge didn't need much convincing. My parents had shown up at my children's school, demanding access. The law was on my side. A no-contact order was put in place immediately. They weren't allowed to come near me, near my house, near my workplace, near my children. But I knew my parents. They wouldn't give up that easily. So I wrote them one final letter. To my parents, this is the last time I will ever communicate with you. I know you think you're in the right. I know you believe that what you did was justified. But let me be clear, you stole my daughter from me. You lied, you manipulated, and you sold an innocent child under the guise of faith. You are not her family. You are not my family. I have filed a no-contact order against you. If you attempt to contact me or my children again, I will press charges. Stay away. Alice. I sent it, blocked their numbers, and changed the locks on my house. Then for the first time in years, I exhaled. The storm had passed. And in its place, something new was growing. Rachel and Matt had kept in touch after our first video call with Emma. They had been careful, never pushing, never overwhelming her. They wanted to protect her, to make sure she wasn't confused or scared. But something incredible happened. Emma started asking about me. It was small things at first. Where does Alice live? Does she have a family? What does she do? Then, one night, Rachel sent me a message. Emma wants to do another call. I nearly dropped my phone. We set up another video chat. This time, Emma didn't hide behind Rachel's shoulder. She smiled when she saw me. Hi, Alice. Her voice was soft but clear. Hi, Emma, I whispered. She held up a drawing. It was a picture of a house, with a sun in the corner and stick figure people standing outside. That's my family, she said, pointing to the figures. Me, Mom, Dad, and Oliver. Her cat. I smiled. It's beautiful. Emma hesitated. Then she pointed to an empty space next to the figures. I can draw you here, she said quietly. Tears stung my eyes. I'd love that, I whispered. Rachel and Matt had kept their word. They weren't rushing anything. They weren't forcing Emma into something she wasn't ready for. But they were building the bridge. And one day, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month, Emma and I would meet. For now, that was enough. For now, I had hope.